Before China shocked the world with its technological advancements, artificial intelligence, development miracles, and great economic power. In the past, this country was no better than African countries. Its people were isolated and lived below the poverty line. How did China rise from poverty and backwardness to become a new superpower with extraordinary economic and technological power? This journey leads to how leadership has a big influence on China's development. What did China's leaders do? China's economic transformation is a spectacular story that has ever happened in the history of the global economy in the modern era. A poor and isolated country from the late 1970s and trapped in a centralized and socialist policy system that hindered economic growth and innovation. After the Chinese Revolution in 1949, the country seemed to be in decline. Poverty, hunger, and unemployment occurred everywhere. At that time, China was economically isolated from other countries, and the majority of its people still lived below the poverty line. The economic policies at that time were also many that were detrimental to the people, so that domestic chaos often occurred massively under President Mao Zedong. But there is still hope to change China's fate in the future, with their new leader, Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping took over the leadership of China in 1978 after the death of Mao Zedong, then completely overhauled the country in almost every way, but what was most felt by the people was the change in the political, economic, social, and cultural systems. How did Deng Xiaoping do this extraordinary job? What did he do that could transform a poor country into an economic powerhouse that could rival the dominance of the US? When he first took office as president, Deng Xiaoping realized that China lagged far behind other countries in almost every aspect, despite its rich natural resources and large population. To revolutionize China into a developed country, Deng took a major step by initiating Chinese-style socialism, which aimed to integrate China into the global economy and adopt some aspects of a market economy, a decision that would change the face of China in the following decades. In 1978, Deng Xiaoping proposed a policy of reform and opening up to the outside world, reducing government control over the economy and allowing the private sector to flourish. Deng also changed the economic decentralization system that previously adopted a centralized economy where all economic decisions were made by the central government. Deng then also gave large economic management rights to local governments to manage their economies independently and supported a free market to create economic competition that would then accelerate the progress of China's local industries. In addition, the system built by Deng attracted a lot of foreign investment in large amounts, especially in the manufacturing sector. With low labor costs and policies that favor global companies, China became an attraction for global companies to set up their factories in China, making them the world's factory. Deng realized that China's human resources were still far behind, so he allowed large companies to enter with low taxes and low labor costs, the aim being to create jobs and transfer knowledge, especially in terms of manufacturing technology. With the foundation of policies built by Deng Xiaoping, China finally became heavily involved in global trade. Increasing foreign trade became the key to driving the wheels of the Chinese economy. In the early 1990s, China began to get involved in international organizations such as the World Trade Organization. Although it only became an official member in 2001, this gained China access to international markets and encouraged economic growth. In the industrial sector, Deng allowed state-owned enterprises the freedom to manage themselves and make profits, although the state retained control over some key sectors such as energy and banking. This opened up massive investment and supported healthy competition in the industrial sector. the role of the Chinese government in driving economic growth is very significant. Through the 5-year plan program, the government can determine priority sectors and provide incentives to industries that are considered strategic, such as manufacturing, technology, and renewable energy. In addition to building domestic economic growth, Deng Xiaoping also expanded the influence of the global economy by investing part of his country's foreign exchange to signal their influence in the global. In the technology and infrastructure sector, Deng Xiaoping realized that the world is very dependent on advanced technology and adequate infrastructure in the future. Therefore, the Chinese government encourages research and development of technology so as to attract foreign investors to invest in this sector. In terms of infrastructure, the Chinese government is building massively, including the construction of transportation networks, ports, and new cities. With the construction and distribution of modern infrastructure, it creates increased trade efficiency with more competitive distribution and trade costs. In addition, the low interest rates set by the Chinese government accelerate economic growth. In addition to economic reform, the Chinese government also invested in human resource development. Deng Xiaoping wanted to change the Chinese people who were previously low-paid laborers to be able to make their own products and flood the market with Chinese products. However, to achieve all that, the government invested heavily in the education sector by developing all levels of education up to university. In addition, China also encouraged technical and vocational skills. Many workers who used to work for agriculture and other informal sectors now work in the manufacturing sector. Through the reforms built by Deng Xiaoping, the Chinese middle class increased drastically. Since 1990, the World Bank estimates that more than 760 million Chinese people have escaped poverty. Some economists even call it the most impressive economic miracle in history. Although the Chinese economy has grown rapidly, its negative impacts are also felt with the increasing economic gap between cities and villages. The western region of China is lagging behind in development and economy. Big cities such as Shanghai, Beijing, and Shenzhen are rapidly leaving the western region of China, resulting in political turmoil in the country. After undergoing a major transformation under President Deng Xiaoping, China became increasingly ambitious to become a new global power. Under China's new leader, Jiang Zemin, who continued Deng Xiaoping's reforms in 1993, Jiang continued the economic development programs of the Deng Xiaoping era to strengthen its position as a new great power that began to be reckoned with. Culminating in 2001, China, under President Jiang Zemin, joined the WTO, or World Trade Organization, in 2001. This decision was very important because it signaled China's readiness to participate in more open global trade. By joining the WTO, China has greater access to international markets by encouraging exports and attracting foreign investment. President Jiang inherited the political stability that was essential to sustain China's reform agenda that was not previously built by President Deng Xiaoping. However, Jiang Zemin's leadership was halted in 2003 after he stepped down as General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party in 2001. Jiang realized that in order to make China even greater, there needed to be a smooth transition of leadership from a new generation amidst accelerating globalization. Jiang Zemin's staff leadership replaced Hu Jintao. President Hu Jintao continued the previous programs, but his greatest focus was on the social system, which gave birth to many programs such as improving the social security system, poverty alleviation, expanding access to education, and attention to public health. In addition, Hu Jintao also brought China to the international stage with his many involvements in international organizations and strengthening diplomatic relations, and culminating when China was appointed as the host of the 2008 Olympics. This moment was then used by Hu Jintao to strengthen his position as a major emerging power and spread China's political influence in the world. During the Hu Jintao era, companies we now know as Lenovo, Huawei, and BYD also developed into global technology giants. After serving 2 terms, Hu Jintao stepped down and handed over leadership to Xi Jinping in 2012. When the presidency was handed over to Xi Jinping, he brought an ambitious vision that had never been brought by their previous leaders. A year after being inaugurated, Xi Jinping introduced the Chinese Dream Vision, which aims to make China a great, prosperous country with their focus on the country and strengthen China's position in the world. Significant changes when China under the Xi Jinping regime occurred in social justice, where Xi Jinping treated the poor and rich people fairly, all getting the same rights and encouraging reducing social and economic disparities. To strengthen its global position, China introduced the Belt and Road Initiative program, which was implemented in 2013, which aims to connect China with other countries with major infrastructure development, ranging from highways, ports, stations, to airports spread across Asia, Africa, to Europe. Under the Belt and Road program, China strengthens its position as a world manufacturing center. The project, worth more than $1 trillion connects China with 65% of the world's population. According to the World Bank, this program increases global trade by 3%. This also strengthens China's influence globally. Through reforms initiated by Deng Xiaoping, which later reached President Xi Jinping, China has skyrocketed unstoppably. Since 2010, China has become the second largest economic power after the United States. Then in 2023, China experienced a trade surplus of $823 billion. Then President Xi Jinping also introduced the Made in China 2025 program, which aims to reduce China's dependence on foreign technology and encourage the country to lead in the artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and electric vehicle industries. Companies such as Huawei, Tencent, BYD, and Alibaba are growing rapidly. During his decade in power, Xi Jinping has been able to reduce poverty and significantly. Abroad, China's position is getting stronger with aggressive steps. One important thing is how Xi Jinping managed to introduce the concept of the community of shared future of mankind, namely creating a fairer world with China as the center of global development. With good diplomacy, Xi Jinping is increasingly strengthening his influence globally, and the world is now centered on China. With such rapid, significant changes, China, which is said to be the new world leader, is increasingly powerful. China, which used to be a poor and backward country, has become a new world ruler that threatens U.S. dominance, especially after their massive investment in artificial intelligence, energy, and electric vehicles. Until now, China has been able to create unlimited, environmentally friendly energy, sophisticated AI, and electric cars, all of which have almost or have defeated U.S. dominance. Companies such as BYD and Huawei have broken through global technology to the point of becoming rulers in their respective industries. There are still many Chinese industries that are predicted to become global technology rulers, plus the role of the government in facilitating the private sector can accelerate the growth rate of Chinese technology, which will later become a global technology center, replacing Silicon Valley, US. This very rapid progress has become a world wonder that is impossible to repeat. China's progress was obtained because their leaders are all united with the same idea and, of course, with the authoritarian Chinese communist system.